Hello, Joan.
Hello, darling.
So what are we doing today?
We're going to make tahina or tahini cookies.
Tahina. Why?
Because all of a sudden they are all the rage.
Everyone says that their mom is the best cook, but when your mom is Joan Nathan, cooking can be a little bit different.
You called me here to make this show with you.
Yes.
Why? What do you want me to know?
Well, I want you to know what you want to know, but I also want you to know our traditions and what I've learned through the years.
She'll teach me from her wealth of culinary expertise.
Traditions that have gone on for thousands of years shouldn't, within this one generation of just looking at now, be done.
And we'll do like we normally do. We'll talk. A lot. And we'll have some fun.
A Hasidic rabbi once said, forget everything, all you need to know is the food.
That's a good thought. That's what I want to show you.
Now I see, so you've brought your cookbook here. We've got the nice King Solomon's table, the tahina cookies you've written here, but then you said the New York Times says tahini.
Tahini.
Well, you got
right.
a typo in your cookbook.
No, it's not New York Times. It's my cookbook.
Okay, fair enough.
So, but I think that they came into popularity with Otto Lengi. Otto Lengi wrote his Jerusalem cookbook in 2014, and this appeared in the New York Times in 2014.
From Otto Lengi.
Right, from Otto Lengi's Jerusalem cookbook, and that was the beginning.
It's a good cookbook.
It's a great cookbook, and he was really good. And you know,
Isn't his quote on the back of yours? I admire the way Joan Nathan deftly weaves together small personal stories with great historical narratives, whilst always making sure our appetites are properly whetted and scrumptious food is on offer. In essence, this is the secret of every good host, and it is also what makes this such a generous cookbook. Yoram ang Otto Lengi.
Well, that's
so he must like you.
Well, he used actually, when he was doing Jerusalem, one of the very, very, very few cookbooks he looked at before was my book called The Flavor of Jerusalem, Tamei Yerushalayim. And he had never heard of me, I had never heard of him, and then we met afterwards.
Where did you get this recipe?
Two places. When I was writing this book, which I went all over the world for, I came back to New York City, and I was on 18th Street and went to a coffee shop. And my friend Amy Barcher said there are these delicious cookies at this coffee shop, and it's an Israeli coffee shop. And we went to the coffee shop, and there were these really good cookies. And
on 23rd Street.
I think it was 23rd. It wasn't. Was it?
That's what it says.
Oh, okay. So I went home, and I was talking to another friend of mine in New York, an Israeli friend, and she said, I have a great recipe for tahina cookies. And so she gave me the recipe. Then when I started looking at the earliest recipes that we had in this country for it, it was Otto Lengi's recipe.
So is this your career? You just go around trying cookies wherever you can find a cookie, and you just use that as an excuse for the profession?
Well, kind of.
That sounds like a smart. I think I got to rethink my career moves here.
But I have to, think about how did this recipe originate? And I realized that they used tahini, used sesame for cookies. There's these sesame cookies that started in China. The same. Yeah. So it started in China, because sesame started in China. And
how did it get to Ethiopia?
It traveled in
must have been
ships.
Jewish merchants.
No, it could have been. It could very well have been Jewish merchants. Who knows?
I love tahini, or tahina, however you pronounce it, I'm not sure. And it's a good alternative also if you don't eat much dairy.
Right.
It's a nice sort of heavy, buttery kind of consistency if you don't have dairy. Now this dish obviously has butter in it, but you could probably sub out that butter, couldn't you?
Well, you can use oil instead.
Right.
But it's
or any of these varieties of plant-based butters.
Right.
that are going on.
And also tahina was really the tahina cookie, not tahina cookies, but tahina was the first candy, halva. Was
Did you bring
really
any?
the early, no, I didn't. But it was the earliest, really the earliest candy in the Western world. Let's start with our blanching. So you boil the water, put the almonds in, and then what you do, David, is so much fun. You just pinch. You know how to do this. I've done
Not
this with
really.
you. Let's see.
Well, why not just buy them already?
Well, if you did, but sometimes I
want me
kind
to
of
put
like
them
to do
into
it myself. I'm amazed at how many people do not know how to blanch almonds. And kids like to do that. I mean, my grandchildren like to do it.
It's a fun game.
Pinch.
I mean, it's
You
very
can-
tactile. If you sesame, you say, comes from China,
Right? For sure.
is it not one of the 7 species of the Bible?
No.
What are the
not.
7 species of the Bible? Ready? Go.
Figs.
1,
Grapes.
2,
Pomegranates.
3,
Wheat.
4,
Barley.
5,
Did I say fig?
yep,
Dates.
6.
Oh, yeah. I forget what the seventh is.
Ladies and gentlemen,
usually know
Joan
that. I
Nathan has failed at the live
And it's not
trivia.
orange. Orange came from China. It's
Wheat.
not oat, right?
Barley,
Barley.
grape, fig,
Fig.
pomegranates,
Pomegranates.
olive oil,
Olives. Oh my God.
and date
How
honey.
could I not remember olive oil?
So we could have done olive oil in this recipe instead of butter, couldn't we?
You could do that, but we're not.
And we could put dates on top instead of almonds and make this a 7 species biblical tahina.
Well, there wouldn't be, there would be flour in it. Yeah, you could. And you know, sweets are something that really were very upper class. You know, who had sweets? First of all, you had nothing like Oreo cookies for kids that just wanted a
They
sweet.
suffered in the Bible.
And then you put some vanilla, which of course is not biblical, in these cookies.
Yeah.
And you put about a fourth of a teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
You put tahina in.
So half a cup of tahina.
Right, and you know what was so interesting to watching the sesame harvest was that when you thought you were going to hit the sesame to get the seeds out, it was so much like the way that you get olives
From the tree.
from the tree, right, okay. And then you put flour. Oh, it smells so good. You know, it smells a little bit like
What are we doing?
peanut butter.
It is like
And
peanut
I
butter.
know, it is like, so you're gonna make it like a large marble.
Large marble. Amy Zitelman. Here you go.
Amy, actually, Amy would know. Would you want to tell them about your company?
Sure. So my sisters and I started a company here in the States, based in Philadelphia, almost 10 years ago. It's called Soom Foods, S as in Sam, O-O-M. Soom is sesame in Hebrew, and we sell premium tahini to the U.S. market, actually the North American market, a bit in Canada as well.
And the sesame seeds are from Humera, which is in Ethiopia.
That's right. So the sesame seeds grow all across the world, but the variety, the white Humera variety that grows in the Humera region, are coveted internationally, specifically for pressing into tahini. So whereas other sesame seeds might be used to create, hulled sesame seeds or sesame oil, the white Humera seeds that grow in the Humera region of Ethiopia are used pretty much exclusively for tahini production across the world. So it's a really great variety in terms of its ratio of oil to the rest of what we call the sesame meat, and also the flavor profile. It has a much more mildly bitter flavor profile than other tahinis or sesame seeds used to make tahini, and is really coveted internationally for tahini specifically.
What is it? Is it tahini or tahina? And hi, I'm Joan's son, David.
Hi. So tahini is the Greek pronunciation,
Aha.
and tahina is the Arabic pronunciation.
Okay.
And since Greek cuisine popularized, well, not really popularized, but brought tahini over to the States far before Arabic and Middle Eastern cuisine, Americans are familiar with the ingredient as tahini, and obviously people with Middle Eastern influence recognize it as tahina. So as a company, like Soom decided to call it tahini.
And what about in Israel? What do they call it in Israel?
They call it trina in Israel, which
Tahina.
would be the Arabic pronunciation.
And they call it tahina also in Jordan and in Arab countries?
I guess.
Yep, and in Lebanon as well, for instance. And it's interesting there, especially in Israel, which I'm more familiar with Israeli culture and language than Arabic, but trina refers to both the ingredient, like what we have at home in our pantries, the ground sesame seeds, and trina would be the prepared trina, like that trina sauce or the thicker trina dip that you would incorporate into the hummus or hummus.
And when did tahini become really popular in the Western world?
It's a great question. I mean, really over the last 10 years, as Middle Eastern and Israeli food has become more popular, in particular hummus. So most people still, recognize tahini primarily as an ingredient used to make hummus. But thanks to people like Yotam Ottolenghi, of course, Mike Solomonov, and other great chefs here in the States, tahini has become much more, I guess, appreciated for its versatility in both savory and sweet dishes.
I like it on my pasta.
I love it on pasta, like as a substitute for a cream sauce.
Yeah.
You can mix it with 100%. It's unbelievable, really, the versatility of tahini as an ingredient in terms of a substitute for those things that are more familiar in Western cuisine. So I also had the opportunity to write a cookbook, The Tahini Table, where we use tahini in a lot of more versatile ways than just the standard Middle Eastern, Arabic, Israeli way. And a lot of times, yes, it's a substitute for cream or mayonnaise, butter even, and baked goods. Very, very versatile.
Well, thank you, Amy. I look forward to looking at your cookbook.
Thanks, Joan. Talk to you soon.
Nice to
Okay.
meet you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So it's really interesting. It is a new recipe. That's what it is. It's an ancient ingredient, but it's a new way of making it.
This is really nouveau Jewish cooking.
Well,
or Israeli. I mean, just
Not necessarily. I mean, it's nouveau. I think it had to have started with Ottolenghi because it was in the times before Mike's cookbook came out.
So does that even make it a Jewish dish?
No. I mean, both he and Sammy, his restaurant partner who wrote the book with him, who is a Palestinian, are of the land of Israel. So, but they're also very creative cooks. And so they thought of this buttery product that would make an even better flavored cookie, and that's what happened. Now there's chocolate tahina too.
Well, I say we
Put them
bake
in the
it
oven.
and eat it. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. All right. Oh, they look perfect. Perfect.
Great.
Yum.
So, tahini cookies.
Can you smell them?
Yeah, they smell delicious.
Really delicious.
And I think what we can do is serve them.
So these are like a shortbread cookie because
Watch
there's
out.
butter too.
So what we can do, serve them on here. How many would you give to someone? 3.
Yeah.
There you go. A biblical, modern
With sesame seeds.
feast.
And the funny thing is that like Soom, which is the candy, sesame candy that you find in Israel
Yeah.
and a lot of Sephardic countries, it's the same candy that you'd have from China.
So it's a kind of a really international delicacy.
Yeah, but it's also so much of the Middle East comes from China.
They smell delicious.
They're so good.
And they're so like delicate. They kind of just fall apart.
Delicious.
Well, thank you.
Almost as delicious as the experience with you for a day.
Oh, Joni.
I'm always amazed at how long it takes everything to shoot.